Halloween is officially over, but this year had a handful of exciting horror films in store for us. Movies like Dr. Sleep, Zombieland Double Tap, and The Lighthouse come to mind. And since we are all about the good scares, we will now take this opportunity to take a look at the upcoming year and present you our top 10 horror movies that we're looking forward to in 2020.
I'm scared to close my eyes.
The Conjuring Part 3. It's finally happening. 4 years after we've tagged along with Ed and Lorraine Warren, the duo returns for The Conjuring 3 in 2020. James Wan will, however, not return to direct the film. The visionary horror mastermind will unfortunately only act as an executive producer. Instead, the Curse of La Llorona director Michael Chaves will helm the film. Both Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga are set to reprise their iconic roles as paranormal investigators. This time around, the plot will revolve around a man who is seemingly possessed by a demon that forced him to murder his landlord. After part 1 and part 2, we are really looking forward to the third chapter of the main series. Saw 9. Next year will mark the return of one of the most iconic horror franchises of all time, in the form of The Organ Donor, which is the working title for the upcoming 9th installment of the Saw film series.
They kidnap you and drug you. Before you know it, you're lying in a bathtub and your kidneys are on eBay.
The screenplay will be written by comedian Chris Rock, who will also star in the film alongside veteran genre actor Samuel L. Jackson.
Oh no.
Darren Lynn Bousman, who already directed Saw 2, 3, and 4, will shoot the picture. However, this time around, John Kramer, aka Tobin Bell, might not return, making this the first Saw film without Jigsaw himself. The movie is, however, not intended to be a reboot of the franchise, but rather a continuation of the story established in the previous films without being a direct sequel to 2017's Jigsaw. A Saw film without Tobin Bell doesn't seem right to us, but let's wait and see what Chris Rock's got in store for us.
Just remember the rules.
A Quiet Place 2. In 2018, John Krasinski blew us all away with his directorial debut, A Quiet Place. The sequel is set to hit theaters in 2020 and will continue to tell the story of the Abbott family. Emily Blunt will return as Evelyn, and this time around, she and her children will be joined by Cillian Murphy and Jimon Hansu. The plot is still shrouded in mystery, but the sequel is set to expand the world established in the first film. This second soundless horror experience seems promising. Halloween Kills. In 2018, David Gordon Green revived the most notorious slasher killer. His Halloween was a direct sequel to the John Carpenter classic and reintroduced us to Jamie Lee Curtis' Laurie Strode. The movie was a huge success, which is why 2 sequels were already announced. Halloween Kills, which will be released in 2020, and Halloween Ends, which will hit theaters 1 year later. Halloween Kills is set 2 years after the events of the last film, and will pit Strode against Myers once more. The dream team that is David Gordon Green and Danny McBride, who already were responsible for the first film, will be in charge of this project once more. We are hoping for a worthy horror sequel.
Say something, Michael.
The Purge 5. 2013 marked the beginning of a whole new horror franchise, The Purge. Once every year, a dystopian version of America celebrates a national holiday known as Purge, in which all crimes, including murder, are legal for 12 hours. The film spawned 2 sequels, a prequel, and even a TV show. And next year it's time for the final chapter, as The Purge 5 is set to conclude the saga. James DeMonaco, who directed the first 3 films, will be responsible for the script. However, as of now, no plot details have been revealed. But since it's the supposed final chapter, it might revolve around bringing down the regime behind the Purge Night. We are excited to witness the end of an era.
Please just let us purge.
Last Night in Soho. After his terrific action film Baby Driver, cult director Edgar Wright returns to the genre that made him famous: horror. His Shaun of the Dead is a cult classic and one of the greatest horror comedies of all time. His new film, Last Night in Soho, however, is not intended to be a comedy, but a straight-up horror picture. Regarding the plot, nothing has been revealed yet, but the movie is intended to be a psychological horror film that harkens back to classics like Don't Look Now and Repulsion. The witch star Anya Taylor-Joy and the 11th Doctor Who Matt Smith will play the lead characters. And despite the fact that we don't know anything else about this project, it's an Edgar Wright film for God's sake, so you know you're in for a party.
Well, now what? I'll have to get more stuff.
The Grudge. The 2002 Japanese horror film The Grudge was remade 2 years after its release for an American audience. Back then, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, aka Sarah Michelle Gellar, starred in the film and became the victim of a creepy boy and a horrifying curse that was cast upon her house. Now we're getting yet another remake. But it does sound much more promising than you might think, mainly because of the folks behind the camera. Evil Dad mastermind Sam Raimi will produce the picture, and Nicholas Pesky will direct it. The latter recently satisfied horror fans around the globe with his film The Eyes of My Mother. With this great horror team, The Grudge seems to be in good hands. Candyman. If you say his name 5 times in front of a mirror, he will be summoned.
You're mine now.
That is what Helen Lyle learned firsthand in the 1992 classic Candyman. Candyman was the son of a slave who was brutally murdered by a violent lynch mob. They covered him in honey and let the bees kill him. The Candyman caused controversial discussions and became a cult classic in 1992. And next year it's time for a remake. The script for the new iteration will be written by none other than Jordan Peele, who recently emerged as a horror director thanks to films like Get Out and Us. This time around, however, he will not direct the picture, but merely produce it.
Surrender to me now.
The Invisible Man. 2017's The Mummy was meant to be the linchpin for Universal's Dark Universe, a horror-themed cinematic universe based on the iconic monsters of the 30s and 40s. Before the film's release, Universal even published a cast picture for upcoming feature films. Javier Bardem, for example, was set to play Frankenstein's monster, while Johnny Depp was supposed to take on the role of the Invisible Man. However, since The Mummy crashed and burned at the box office, the Dark Universe was put on ice. Instead, it was decided to focus on standalone films. And horror pro Jason Blum will now be in charge of the first new project, The Invisible Man.
How do you like that, eh?
The Handmaid's Tale's Elizabeth Moss will star in the film. Johnny Depp is out as the main villain. Instead, Oliver Jackson Cohen will become the titular Invisible Man. Another interesting detail would be the man behind the camera. None other than Lee Wennell will direct the film. He is the man who's responsible for the Saw franchise that he created alongside his best friend James Wan in 2004.
He's not dead.
I have a pile of ashes in the box that would disagree with you.
He has figured out a way to be invisible.
Gretel and Hansel. The last film on our list is a special recommendation. Gretel and Hansel is a very unique take on the Hansel and Gretel fairy tale by the Brothers Grimm. Director Oz Perkins is the son of none other than Anthony Perkins. The latter became infamous for his portrayal of the iconic psycho killer Norman Bates. It comes to no surprise that his son grew to love the horror genre. The trailer looks insanely dark, and this film is definitely not made for children. Fans of the new It films might be interested in this project though, because Gretel will be portrayed by Sophia Lillis, who played the young version of Beverly.
Careful, dear. I'd hate for you to start something you can't stop.
And that concludes our top 10 most anticipated horror films for 2020. Which one are you looking forward to the most? Let us know in the comment section below. And for more original content, check out these videos.